Great. I'm really honored to introduce to you Raeda Ghazaleh and Yasmin Samir, who are joining us for this discussion from Jerusalem, which it's 10 p.m. there. We're recording this at, I should say 8 p.m. in Jerusalem. We're recording this at 10 a.m. in California. So they're joining us from 10 hours away on the other side of the world, which is very exciting. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and say a few words about their work. But before I do, let me just say to people watching this video how we know each other. We worked on a production of a book, which we turned into a play called The Story of Zara. This is the book by Hanan al-Sheikh. And we wrote a play based on that book. And the play was produced about a year ago at the Palestinian National Theater in East Jerusalem, and Raeda co-wrote the play with me and directed the production, and Yasmin played the lead role of Zara in the production, and so that's how we know each other and have worked together. And it took us, Raeda, about what, 2 years to write the play, so we've been working on this for a number of years together. So I'm really honored and thrilled to be able to introduce the two of you to our community here. And let me just ask you to say a few words about your work generally and where you're at, and then we'll talk more specifically about this play. Raeda, go ahead.
Well, I started studying theater in the 90s, which was called the visual theater. And then I was an actress in the beginning. And then I went into the idea of directing because was my passion from the beginning. And I thought the turning point was that I thought that I need to have enough tools with scripts to deal with scripts. So I went to England and I worked with the Royal Theatre there, Royal Court Theatre, with writers, and then I continue with working with playwrights, and I created groups in Palestine with writers to write for the theater, because this is not something known in Palestine. And from there, I have been working with writers, with the different productions that I made. And each time it's kind of a different approach. Sometimes it's based on a devising process, which the writer is with us as a team, and he writes with us as we are improvising and all these ideas comes up and he writes. Or I start with the writer on an idea, like let's say a children's story that I loved, and then I choose the writer to work with, and we made the script and then went to production. So each time is kind of a bit different, the approaches, but a lot of my work was based on the idea that or I choose a story, or I choose novel, or something that an idea came to my mind that I heard, and then I turn it into to the stage with somebody, partner, or the team. That's kind of the journey of since the 90s till now that I made. And I have I was part of creating 2 theater groups in Palestine that they're still working and active. That's it.
Oops, sorry, my microphone was off. I would just add to that if I can. You know, in the process of working on Story of Zara with you, I made a number of trips to Palestine for workshops and rehearsals and the meeting with the designers and then the production itself. And I was really impressed on those many trips, to a point you were making here, about just how robust it seems to me the theater community is in Palestine. I mean, you've got some incredible companies producing just terrific work throughout the region. And that really impressed me as a visitor in and out of there. Could you just say a few words about the 2 companies that you helped create and where they're located and their names?
Right. I created a theater group called Ainat Theater, which is stubborn theater in English. And we were working with a community a lot, which I still do, and children theater and adults productions. And we toured a lot in the Arab world, internationally. And after that, I mean, they're still functioning, they're still working, but I'm not part of that. In 2005, I finished my master's in England, and I was ready to change my direction with another group. And we recreated another group called the Hara Theater. And the Hara Theater now is a very known theater internationally too. And we have different festivals like International Children Festival. We tour everywhere with adults productions. And I mean, I still do productions with the theater, but I am not a part of it as employee since 3-4 years now. So this is the two theaters in the South. But like you said, there's a lot of theater groups that they are active and they're trying to produce and make a good work, which is not easy. I can say that we're in Palestine, we're not a lot of artists or theater people, but each person works there, makes a difference, because to be in this career, it needs a lot of courage and strength. Especially in Palestine. So if you're there, you make a difference in any way. There's no choice. So or you're there or you're not there. So we're a few numbers, but it sounds like we're making a lot of work. That's the idea of it. And I can say that when I started, it wasn't like theater wasn't looked at as a profession, you know, like people, especially me as a woman, a lot of people were against me to study and have it as a career and create something around me. And I had a lot of people against me, family, but after a while they started being involved and they saw how much important this for the society, for the community. And this has made a big difference for the new generation, because now you see that there is a lot of women and young men, they are studying theater. In my time, there were few who really studied theater. There were people working in the theater, but not really study it. So now it's like Yasmin, she studied theater and she's an actress, all that. But in my time, maybe I was like the first woman in that time having like a degree with theater. That's
now
kind
there are several acting schools through Palestine.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yasmin, I'd like to turn the focus to you for a moment, and I'll probably embarrass you a bit by what I'm about to say in my introduction, but I want to say it anyway. I mean, your performance as Zara in this play that we did, the performance that we did a year ago, was just so incredible. I'm not sure I've ever seen a performance so electric and exciting and so fully committed as what you did in that production. Yeah, I can see I'm embarrassing you a little bit, right?
Yeah. I'm not so good with compliments. Thank you.
It really, and I said this to you at the time when we talked after the show last year. I mean, I said that to you at length when we talked. So you're not hearing this for the first time, but I'm saying it publicly, I suppose. It was just so incredible. But can you say some things about your work, and then we can talk more specifically about this play?
I graduated from acting school, as Raeda was saying, in 2013, mid 2013, and since then I've been working theater, professionally. After I got, I studied acting. I'm a freelancer. and I work with a lot of theaters in Palestine and outside, and a lot of institutions. I mainly am an actress. I sometimes do some training or acting coach or stuff like that, but I am mainly an actress. And recently, I started to do, like 1 or 2 years ago, I started to do a doctor clown. So yes, basically, there's not much to say about me, because yeah, I'm just recently I'm an actress basically. So yeah.
Well, and you've done work throughout Palestine, but also internationally. I mean,
Yes.
before COVID hit, I was planning to make a trip and see a production that you were due to be in Switzerland.
Yes.
But then
Yes.
COVID happened and that didn't happen. But can you talk about that work too?
Yes, I work in Europe a lot, because a part of my schooling, or my uh, like my schooling, basically, it was in Germany too. We had like a cooperation um, with the German acting school or art school, and so I had to go there often and take classes and examinations and stuff like that. That's how I started going to Europe, Germany particularly, and then it opened up after I finished school, with projects, me alone as an actress, not as a student. And then from there, it just developed. So I started working with just state theaters, and then with individuals. And then I started working Netherlands and Switzerland and all of these things, all of these countries basically, and networks too. So I'm part of a network, a women network for making theater, women making theater in war countries or conflicted countries. And that's how I actually work most of my life until COVID hit us and we were all just sitting playing on Zoom.
Yeah, what is the status of theater right now in Palestine? I mean, is anything happening? Like, has COVID
Well,
allowed anything to open up at the moment?
to be honest, very minimal. Me and Raeda and some of other actors, we are working on something. Um, and we did rehearsals, and then we had to stop for a little while, and then we have to continue on October, and then we'll open. I have a project that I recently opened, like a play that we opened, had a premiere like 3 weeks ago, but it was hard because every time you start and then you start to be focused on that project or that play, and then someone gets corona, then you all have to be at home and get tested and then continue. And I think it's like all over the world, plus the complications of being making theater in Palestine, fundings and um, you know occupation and all of that. So we're struggling, but I mean, we're trying very hard to get through it because it's such an intense period of time for everyone, I guess. But I mean, I'm hopeful that everything will be fine very soon.
Yeah, I think we all are. I was
Yeah.
saying to you before this conversation, I got my first shot yesterday, my vaccination shot. So I think we're all feeling, is there a light at the end of this tunnel? Let's say a few words about the production that we worked on together. And I've got some photos I'd like to show, and then we'll open this up to questions for the people that are here. I'm going to share my screen so that we can look at these photos. And Raeda and Yasmin,
Oh,
let me in. Can you see
that's
my
Palestine.
screen?
Yes.
Yeah, that is not Palestine.
Oh, that's
You mean the
Zahra.
photo on my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Raeda and Yasmin, let me invite you to sort of jump in and we can discuss these photos as I show them.
Sure.
But yeah, as I said, this project came about. Raeda and I were introduced to each other about 3 years ago by a mutual friend in Ireland. And we met at a cafe in Jerusalem and started discussing projects we might like to work on together. And this book by Hanan al-Sheikh is set in Lebanon during the Civil War there. The book starts in the first years of the Civil War, which is in the mid-1970s. And so it tells the story of a young woman living in Lebanon at the beginning of the war who has a relationship with a sniper on her street. There were many snipers during the Lebanese Civil War who would go up in the top of buildings and sort of patrol streets and own streets below. And so this woman has a relationship with a sniper operating on her street. Is that a fair description of the book and play, Raeda and Yasmin?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I mean, the book, let's say the book is not just about the period of the civil war. It's around the life of Zahra, who tell us her childhood, her experience with the family, what happened to her, how she got to Africa and came back. But the choice of the script that we did, me and Matthew, was the last third of it, which is the chapter that talks about Zahra and the sniper, which is in the Civil War, that we choose to talk about.
Yeah, that's very true. The book covers more territory than our script does. We focus our script on about the last third of the book, which is this relationship with the sniper. And we've got some terrific production photos here that I'd like to go through. This is Yasmin, of course, playing the role of Zahra in the play, which, as I said, was at the Palestinian National Theater, which is in East Jerusalem in the West Bank. And so that's where the play was staged. Zahra has a mother, and this is her mother, who's a terrific actress, isn't she? I mean, we were so lucky to have her in our production, and you know, she brings such gravitas to that role and to everything she does. But Zahra's family life is not the best. These are some of the photos of Zahra's family. Zahra has a brother who is out and about and participating in the war as a militiaman. And the piece is very gendered in some of the commentary it makes, isn't it? About the freedom that men have in this sort of situation relative to the lack of freedom.
Yeah, I think this is one of the most things that really caught my eyes in this piece or in this story and the play, that it really talks about women and how this particular girl got freedom in between all of that, war and male dominant world and all of that. So I guess it is about war and about Lebanon and how things were there, but mainly it is about women and this particular girl, how she found her way, I don't know if it's out or, all of this craziness.
Yeah, I mean, I'm struck in our play. I've never obviously lived through a situation like this, so I'm looking at it purely through our play and the book. And one theme that I'm struck with in there is how the male characters, are able to reinvent themselves in a situation like war in ways that they're happy with, and they get to be stronger. And her brother is the representative of that. He carries a gun. He makes himself into this person. Whereas Zahra, it's quite the opposite in war. She's meant to not go out of the house. Her life is totally over in some sense because of this war. And I was struck.
At the same time, the chaos of the war is what allowed her to find herself. Because in war, things get loose, and people around, they're in danger. Don't look at each other in the same way. So things could happen. A lot of things could happen, and that's why was like the window for Zahra to question things and kind of find herself in middle of this chaos, which is a tragedy, but it is the story of Zahra, really.
That's right. The chaos eventually allows Zahra to kind of find a space for herself, which is through this relationship with the man, the sniper, operating on her street. And this is a picture of him here. He's a mystery figure in the play. We don't really know what side he's on. We don't know what he's doing. All we know is that he operates as a sniper and shoots anybody who comes into the street. What we don't know is, like, why is he doing that? Is he part of a bigger picture? That's never really explained in the book or the play, I don't think. But also such terrific scenes between the two of you. You know, I love this picture where the sniper and Zara are sort of falling in love a little bit, you know, in the midst of this chaotic, terrible situation. They create a really human relationship with each other, don't they? And that's something we try to amplify in the play. And we ended up writing a lot of lines for the two of them in their relationship. But do we give it away? It doesn't end happily, as many stories like this don't end. Do we give away the ending in this? I don't know if we should give away the ending or not, but I will say their relationship gets tense toward the end of the play. And here are some of the final scenes. Zara's last monologue. I love this picture of you, Yasmin. This is your final monologue on stage.
Yes, I love this picture too. It really, you can see the atmosphere of the whole play in this particular image with the, you know, broken window glass and the rain and the bags of, you know, I think this is a great picture. Yes, it brings me, it just brings me, I don't know, warmth and nostalgia when I look to the pictures, because it was such an intense work and I enjoyed it. It was really, really nice.
I'm not sure how well this picture translates on the screen, but yeah, this is rain that is coming down on top of her in the final scene. It was beautiful on stage with the lights and the yellow rain kind of coming down, and then your body center stage. It was, I thought, a really striking visually ending to the piece. What was it like working on this? Why don't we bring the focus back to you, and then we'll open it up to questions for Raeda and Yasmin. I mean, what was it like working on this play? And also, let me ask too, what was your interest in telling a piece set in Lebanon? I mean, you're both living in Palestine, and you've talked about the difficulty a little bit of producing art in that context. But this book and this play is set in Lebanon during the Civil War. Why? Why tell that piece for a Palestinian audience today?
I met Hanan, I think, in 98.
Hanan's the author of the book.
Author of the book. She gave me her novel. I read it, and I fell in love with it. I read most of her novels, but this one just made me think a lot about so many things, and it just stayed with me for years. And I told Hanan one day I want to do this on stage, and usually she said, I don't see how you can make this on stage, because the novel it doesn't have, like Zahra as Zahra, also like the first most of the 2/3 of the book, she's not active, she's very passive in a way. So in a stage is it hard to put a passive character which is the lead. It's not an easy thing to, but for me was the last part of this novel talked with me a lot, which is the sniper part, because there I saw the turning point of this character, which is like a person born again, questioning again, finding answers again, trying at least, and have that power to take him there. That doesn't stop. She just doesn't stop. And she had this eager that she doesn't have no for an answer. Like she always like want to know. So there is something takes us as an active thing for the stage, which is important. And this is why I thought this is this is what, where I should work, or I can dream there, let's say. The thing that I didn't, all this years, I couldn't find somebody to work with me on it. I didn't find the person, which happened to me before. I read things for 10 years, I put it on the side. I said, this is one day I will do, and I didn't do until after 10 years. And that's what happened when I met Matthew. I felt like this is the person who understands how to create this piece. Because from my experience with writers, a writer have an ego. He wants to be his voice on stage. And when you're turning a novel to the stage, you can't have that, because you have to respect that there's another voice, which happens on the technique of puppets. Some actors, they can't touch a puppet because they're bigger than the puppet. If you don't allow the puppet to talk, you can't make work of puppets, It's a big difference. And Matthew is such a humble person, such a lovely, he just melts into the work. And that's why he could do this work, because you need to understand the voices around you in the piece. If you don't, then it becomes not the novel or the voice of the novel, it becomes what you want to say. It's a big difference. So I think that the choice of discussing together what's important, where we want to take, why we want to do it, how we want to do it, and to turn it to the stage in this way, because Hanan Sheikh was with us all the time, and Matthew was sending her all the drafts, and she was happy. It's not easy for novelists to be happy about his novel being on stage, because he sees that somebody's ruining his work. And in Hanan's case, she was happy about the script for the stage, because she saw that there is a voice there that she wanted to have. Why Zahra? It's because for me this subject is very important. Violence and what creates violence is a big question for forever. It's always. For me personally, I lived in Palestine most of my life. I lived the first Intifada, the second Intifada. I saw the people who really wants to give themselves for Palestine, to free Palestine. I saw the chaos between all this, when things get loose and no control, when things turn, when like the brother of Zahra, he's in a struggle that he's fighting for his right, he's fighting for Lebanon, but in the same time, the war changed him and ruined him, and he became somebody who could kill, who could steal, because war damaged people. Even that when you start, you think, this is what I want. So you this play focus on a lot of negative aspects of violence, and how and who pay. And the most person who pay in such a situation is a woman, because nobody can protect. It's always the same story. And for me, the play was about questioning all this. So it's not about where it happens. It's about the human aspects of why and how we accept this to happen. And this is what happened in Palestine when we did the production, because the Palestinians who came to see it, in the beginning, people thought, the audience could attack us because we are, in Palestine, the society, we're putting such a relation between sniper and, but people here respect this so much. went out talking how much this is important to talk about for the perspective of Palestine, how this is alerts a lot of questions for the young generation to see things real, like where we could go with our actions, where we could reach with this, why we do this. All these things were very important for the Palestinian society too. I mean, the peace is when the peace is, doesn't matter where it happens, when it talks internationally, it talks anywhere, because the main points is the human points. That's what we are putting there. And when a script like this works, it could work anywhere, I think. For Palestine is important because we're not so far from this also political culture. Lebanon is not far from us. We kind of, Palestinians have so much with Lebanon. So it was a very intimate relation between the audience and the story.
Let me say one thing for our viewers, and then I'll ask Yasmin a question, and then we'll open it to discussion. But the one thing is, yeah, the production that we're talking about here that was staged a year ago was in Arabic language. There's also an English language version of the play that has not received a full production yet. But yeah, the show we're talking about and the pictures I just showed were in Arabic, and Raeda did the translation. We wrote the English script together, and then she also translated it into Arabic, and in that process made additional changes. But Yasmin, what was it like for you? I mean, you're on stage in this piece the entire time. You're performing incredible emotions. You never leave the stage, as I said, and you've got to drive the story, and that's a lot of work for an actress.
Yes, it was a bit challenging and beautiful, to be honest. And Raeda was such a great director and mentor, and sometimes a therapist. She was great, to be honest. And without her, I wouldn't have been able to do it. It's such an intense piece, and the first thing I want to say that Zahra as a character is a very complex character. And also the play, how it's written, it works on three lines going together. So we talk about the past, we talk about the present, and we talk about you know, a lot of lines we are talking about at the same time. And also the language of the piece itself is heavy, emotional, I'm saying. So it was challenging to do it. It was so much enjoyable. Like, I enjoyed it really, honestly. Like the actress in me, inside of me, really, was so, alert all the time. So like, it was, if we can say, orgasmic for an actress to do such a role. And the process itself was not easy, and I don't like easy work. So I started working with Raeda when she started translating. I got the text, I read it with her, and then she did the Arabic translation. Sometimes I was there to help with things. And then we had to do it in not the Palestinian dialect, we switched it to a Lebanese dialect. And that was really nice too. To be honest, one of the things that I really, really like about this piece, that it talks about Lebanon and the civil war there. And as Raeda also said, because we're not really, the Lebanese, Syrian, Palestinians, we are really connected. And I know because of the generation of my father and mother, they always talk also about Lebanon and the civil war, and how there were Palestinians there at that time, and they were involved in the war, and it was such a big deal. And until now, we still have the remaining effect of that period of time and that these events. And so everyone in the audience and everyone who work in this piece could actually relate to that, because it's a very close community to us, so very close culture, and because it is Lebanon and we have such connection politically and other things. Um, yeah, as I told you, I had so many ups and downs in this in the process. Uh, because also Zahra talks about being raped, and she also have post-traumatic disorder, and I had to figure out how to. And it's sometimes it's really hard for for a performer or an actress to find that line of, okay, I need to go to the character, and I need to sometimes maybe bring the character a little bit just to understand, and then where's the line, and where's the borders of not getting so deep, even if you are someone who is academically you got trained and you studied acting, you still have to be very aware of that, and it's such a complex character that you really need to be aware of it. And that's why Raeda was such, I mean, you would dream to uh, work with someone like her, because she really was there to support any type of breakdowns I would have all the time. I was really happy about the outcome. Um, of course, you will never be satisfied with anything you would do, because you always want to be, oh, what if I did that way, or what if I just corrected that, and then the perfectionist sense in you just start to control you. But I mean, it was a beautiful piece, and it breaks my heart that we can't perform it until now. Let's hope in the future that we can re-perform and rework, and yeah, that's it basically.
Yeah, let's hope we get on the back end of COVID sooner
Oh yeah.
rather than later. On that note, why don't we open it to our audience? We have some people attending this discussion, and they might have questions. So let me invite you all to ask your questions, or you can type them in the chat, whichever you prefer. Yeah, Emily.
Thank you, Yasmin and Raeda, for being here. Really appreciate your time and your work on this piece, and all of your work. This is a question for Raeda. You spoke a little bit about collaboration. You spoke about collaborating with our professor, and also in your work, it sounds like you meet with writers and you come up with scripts together, or you become inspired by a novel and then take that voice and make it into a play. I guess I want to know more about that process of collaboration. Can you speak about a work that you directed that came from that collaboration, and what that work looked like?
Sure. Let's say I worked a children play called The Smile of Jihan, which is based on a story written by a writer called Karim Rawi, who lives in Canada. He's also a novelist. A very short story from the Sufism culture. Like, he also took it from the Sufism culture. In that time, I was looking for play talks with the children about their sadness. As Palestinians, children, like how much you can protect your smile, how to live your life as a child. I have that kind of questions, and then I look for materials. I had this story that is in my mind about smiling, but I didn't know exactly how, when I'm doing it. But a few years ago, we had the opening of the International Children Festival. So I thought that's a good message for our kids, for also a festival. So I was looking for a writer to write the piece out of this story for the stage, because it's also a hard a hard story because the girl itself, she lost her smile. She's not active on stage. Everything around her is active, but not her, which is like the main character. So I worked with the writer. He writes to the stage, but he's also a director, very good director in Palestine, Bashar Murkos. And we created this, I mean, we were talking, collaborating all the time, and talking about how we want to turn it into the stage. We went also through the story, and we took really like the suggestions of the story. So we didn't change much about the characters who visits this girl. We took like the father as a main character, and then we took the bird who supposedly in the story that helps the girl, like the bird who flies and see things that she can't see, that she is sitting in her room and she doesn't see anything. So we turned the bird into a beautiful character that's trying to help her, goes to other countries to bring her people to help her, like in Italy, painter, in even suddenly the son gets tired and goes down to talk with her. You know, the character of the son is very funny. And the idea that in the end, to understand that the happiness comes from inside, and who tell her that is the man who she knows and she likes, who cleans the neighborhood. And nobody wants to give him a chance to talk to her because he is like not important. And in the end, he's the only one to tell her that it's inside you by an action of sanding the wall until it's shining. And then she starts laughing and dancing. So that's kind of like we try to find the stations that the storytelling and turn it into the play with the actors. But this is something to do with really go with the story. But other stories I did, we didn't really go with the story. Like I had a story about a kid who is destroying things, and there's no explanation why destroying things, but the mother keeps telling him, whatever you do, I love you. Whatever you know, in theater, we needed to know why he's doing this. Like we needed to find, and in that production, we worked with a dramaturge from Sweden, me and the Palestinian writer, to find with the team, to find the story. So we turned the whole thing, which was like a poetry, into a very real story, which is that a kid who's like 8 years old, the mother is in the hospital, and the father is preparing for the new baby to come, and he feels lonely and nobody listening to him, and he feels that nobody loves him anymore, so he's destroying things, he's doing things wrongly so people can look at him and his father can give him attention. And it's such a beautiful story for a family, which is it's called Do You Still Love Me, which that the father recognized in the end of the way that he just needs him to, he needs love. And even that play was like a very strong for families, for parents to recognize that, oh, we never thought about it, we never thought what the kids go through. And that was like, so each time is a different process, different ideas, and how you turn them with the person you're working with, or with the actors, or even sometimes like just a team of actors that working together. That's kind of a different process. Sorry, I talked too much.
Raeda, thank you. Thank you for that description. It really takes us through the process of what it means to create a work in a sort of collaborative setting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's maybe something small, that this is something that I mean, I noticed with working with writers with years, there's writers who they're great with novels or poetry, which we have a lot of good writers in Palestine, who they're novelists or they write just poetry, but they don't have the tools to write for stage, because it's a totally different tools. And I tried with so many, and the idea that theater, it's a collaboration. Theater, it's about talking together. The writer can't write alone for stage. The director can't work alone for stage. You really prepare a lot. You prepare a lot, you're ready for going to production, but it's not alone. And everybody in the team have to understand that. And if the writer also understand that, things totally get different. Because from the beginning till the end, it's about collaboration, about being open to listen to everything and think about every idea just comes by.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have other questions from the group that's watching? Yeah, Federico.
Okay.
Sorry, Federico, I think your microphone might be off.
Is on now?
There we go. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so Mike, thank you again for this invitation. Congratulations, Raeda and Yasmin. My comment is, it relates very well to the last two things you were talking about. So when Yasmin was talking about how it feels for you to play the role of the, what is the protagonist of the story, and that role is usually, that's the point I want to make, talking always about the story is about the bad part of the human life, how painful that must be to you. That's one thing that I want to mention here. Now talking to Raeda, when you talk about the story of that little boy and how smiling, and so here we have the two extremes of the stories that talk about the bad in the human beings and the good in the human beings. Just put it in simple words, you can say it better. So my message today is this: I do not like to go to the movies. I don't avoid going to the theater, because most of the time these stories are about the sad part of the human life. So the point, I'm just a scholar that is working on appreciative inquiry. Let's do research about the good. Let's present the good. There is so much good around the world happening that we don't tell. I mean, now that I'm retiring, just for Matthew knows that, we are trying to see movies, and I start the movies from Netflix and others, and always I said, Lucia is my wife, I don't want to suffer this. I am a psychologist also, and I stopped doing psychiatry because I had this deep rapport with the pain of human beings, and I suffer so much seeing that. So it's a personal issue here. So, but the point that, to conclude, my call is why pretty much novels, movies, stories focus always on the most negative side of human beings, and how that stories, yes, at the end there is a lesson to learn. But my call is on why we don't write more about the stories and about the good that is out there. I think there is a lack of that. It's amazing to go through Netflix with the hundreds of movies that they have, and most of them, as I'm sharing with other people, they are just telling us stories about the You know what I'm talking about. I don't want to go ahead with more. We need to hear those stories, Jasmine. We need to hear those stories, Raeda and Matthew. And you know that. I mean, I'm not saying, but again, I am, and I invite you, Raeda and Jasmine, to explore the appreciative inquiry paradigm and why to focus on the positive on what we do right about might be more effective to change to cause the social change that we are after. That's just my point, but it's just sharing with you guys. I know that is more complex than that. Don't get me wrong, but that's since I have been inviting. Thank you for letting me say something.
Thank you for saying it. I am looking for a comedy now.
Yes, yes.
Actually,
yes.
I am.
We need to laugh a little.
We need it too, not just the audience.
Good, Raeda. Tell me when that is done. I will go. I will go to Palestine.
Yes, come and make your comedy.
Well, let's do a comedy
Yes.
next. What'll it be?
Yeah.
Raeda, let's figure that out.
Sure.
I'm in. I invited myself. But there's one thing.
I always was very jealous of Matt when he was telling me, passing by my office, I passing by his office and say, Federico, tomorrow at maybe 5 in the morning, I'm leaving for Jerusalem or Lebanon. I said, wow, I'm so jealous of you that you can afford to do it. Now I'm a little quite older, so I cannot afford to do that. But also to go there with a mission as Matt does is amazing. And now knowing the people work with is very interesting. So anyway, I had been in Jerusalem, but not there. Huh?
We will wait. We will wait for you.
Yes. And if you want to come to California, you are welcome.
Oh yeah.
I am now in California, but I'm from Spain.
Well, I should say, Federico, this interview that we're doing today is in some ways, sadly, in place of what was meant to be an in-person visit from Raeda and Yasmin. San Jose State was, bringing them over here as part of an artistic grant project that we have on campus. But because of COVID, we weren't able to do their in-person visit this year. So this is the replacement for that. But we're hoping maybe sometime in the future, maybe next academic year, they'll be able to come over in person. So yes, to your point, this was meant to be an in-person visit for a week or however long they wanted to stay.
Hopefully, we can do it.
Final
hopefully.
questions. I see Amna has her hand raised, and Jessica, you might have a question. So yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I had to leave home for a kid's appointment. But I have two questions. First, I want to ask, how did it feel to have the play written in two languages? I know there has to be a certain resonance that's created when you transfer from English to Arabic. How did that feel? Do you feel that it brought something extra to the play, or did it take away from the play? How did that play out? Because language is really important, and each language and each word can signify a slightly different meaning. My second question is regarding the sniper. I was wondering, and I haven't read the book, so I don't know how it plays out in the book, but how did you decide to leave the character of the sniper so secretive and so ambiguous? We really don't know who he is and why he is doing what he is doing. What side does he belong to? Was that a deliberate choice? And what does that say? Did you do that to universalize what he's doing? So I would like to hear some comments about that. And thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Raeda, I think those are good questions for you.
Well, the language idea, well, the novel was written in Arabic, first of all, and then translated to English. So for me, I read it in Arabic, but for Matthew, he, of course, he used the English virgin. And the idea that we, in the beginning, we wrote it in English because that was the language that we communicate with each other, me and Matthew. And each time I hear the English dialogues or the monologues, somehow it echoes in Arabic in my mind because I have all these images and thoughts about the novel. So it's kind of in the same time was working in my mind. Took me some time to start actually the translation because I needed so much to get involved in the script in English to feel that I can make it out in Arabic. So the stages were long. I did so many versions of translating first, second, third draft, and Yasmin was helping also with how it sounds and even the other actors. So the thing that we was trying to turn it to be to sounds in Arabic interesting and enough to feel that it's natural. It's not translation. That it's a natural language. I went back to the novel while I'm translating the script. Like a lot of places, I had to turn to the novel as how the characters said those things. But then we went into another step that we had to turn it into Lebanese, and I'm not Lebanese. So I had to listen a lot to Lebanese accent because we know it, but we don't know it in a way, to kind of turn it into a Lebanese accent. And then I had to go to a different Lebanese people to sit with them days for them to read me the sentences and to retype the whole thing in a Lebanese accent. And even after the opening, I went again to a Lebanese a friend who lives here, but she's Lebanese, and we redid the language again, and I worked with the actors on the language again after the opening. So it didn't stop. It's kept evolving all the time. And I guess now when we go back, it will be again a big question about the language and how it works and how it sounds, and if we can, if can make it better and all that. But let's say also that I also went to like in the middle of all this process before the rehearsals, I went to England for a few days, and I worked like 2-3 days with Hanan al-Sheikh in her house, doing the script with her as is a Lebanese dialect. So she was involved on that too. So it was a really long process. Even like a joke, in Arabic, there's a joke that Matthew put. And I thought, no, this doesn't work in Arabic. So we were looking for a joke. I was reading books of jokes to find a joke.
Yes, I remember that. We were reading books about jokes just to find the perfect joke for the character and for the atmosphere.
Like every sentence was like a big story, around this. That's kind of the work. Yeah, about the sniper. The sniper actually in the novel is also unknown. Like you don't know who he is, with who he working, what his agenda exactly, and that's very interesting because it's not about who he is. I think it's about what he's like, what his effect in what's happening in the play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Matthew could say something, about the
I think that's right. Yeah, there's another way of writing this book where the author could be really specific about who the sniper is, what side he's working for, what militia he's doing, But then it would become a kind of political commentary on the various sides in that civil war. And it would be like, oh, you know, if you made the sniper overtly Christian, for example, then it would be, what are you saying? Christians are open to these sorts of unusual relationships? Is that the point of the book? And I think then it would start to go down a path that Hanan doesn't intend the book to go down. And this is really a human story about these two people. And so I think, yeah, but to Amna's question, yeah, the sniper's lack of definition is also in the book. And that's something that we tried to keep in the play, I suppose, for these reasons.
And that wasn't easy for the journey of the actor who played it.
Yeah.
Because as an actor, he wants to know who he is. And it was like a big journey of how he decides what he is, but he doesn't show it, or all these things happening in the production.
That's right. Jessica, you had a question. Sorry, Yasmin, you're going to say something, yeah?
Yeah, no, just sorry, Jessica. One thing, because we're talking about the sniper, it is also very interesting because in the play, we see, like we discussed this a lot, if you remember, Raeda and Matthew, about how do we see the play? Are we seeing the play, like, is the play actually seen from the point of view of Zahra only? So are we just, you know, seeing Zahra's eyes in the whole play? And Zahra actually in the play, she doesn't know if he's Christian, if he's Muslim. She doesn't know anything about him except that he is in a building on a rooftop, and he's killing people, or he does not. She's really not sure about anything. So also that was part of I guess it's also part of why even again
Till the last moment she
yes,
doesn't say. I mean, she
yes,
doesn't know.
exactly. Yeah. Sorry, Jessica.
Please don't apologize. This is so awesome. I really, really hope that someday you can bring this play to California. My question is, some of us in Professor Spangler's class are working on our own adaptations. For me, it's the first time I've ever done a project like this. And the challenge that I feel I'm running against is, how do you cut out, like, is there a way to make yourself feel better about cutting out things that you love that don't serve the story? I don't know if you have any tips or tricks, Raeda, but that's something that I see, you know, there are parts of the book that I love that I just know I'm going to have to cut. And maybe that's not really a question, but I would love to hear if you have any advice.
Kill your babies.
I think it's not just the writer, it's a process of the director also, because this is something I learned with experience, that throwing things, it's a very important thing for the piece you're working on, because making things sharp and clean, I call it clean, it's the thing that you really need for your piece. You know, when I was studying in the beginning of the 90s, really, like I started like theater, I had this course with the teacher. I don't sorry, but I don't remember his name. But the idea that he said something to me, that a painter, if he doesn't know when to stop, the moment to stop the color, he ruins the painting. After, I mean, just a second, he can ruin the whole work. So it's the idea to be aware of what's really important to put there, and what's really doesn't make a difference if you put it or not. And to try, it's about to try. And something with writing is that deleting is as important as writing. So don't be afraid of, and now we have all these machines that you can put million drafts and just delete things and put on the side and read again and see, something is missing. No, something is not missing. Like what happens with this with Zahra, that when Matthew wrote the first draft, we didn't have dialogues for Zahra telling us anything about herself. And when we read it, before even the first reading, the first workshop, I felt there's something missing. I mean, I don't know why this woman doing this sort of things. I need to understand something from her, the line of her life. And we discussed that. And Matthew wrote four monologues, I think, while he's coming to Palestine. I don't know, in the plane or something like that, that they made a huge difference for the script, because suddenly she's taking us and she's telling us about herself, that we understand step by step what's going on. So it's a question of what I'm missing and what I really don't know, and try, and don't be afraid to throw things. Just nothing will happen. We just try it, I think.
Yeah, two things to your question. I keep a file when I'm writing a play of extras, you know, things that I think might be good, but I don't quite know where to put them in the play right now, but I don't want to forget about them. I don't want to lose them because I really like them. And I put them in a special file. It makes me feel better about having them. And about once a month, I look at that file. And sometimes I'm like, oh, now I know where to put that now. Or, yeah, it still doesn't work, you know. But yeah, right. I mentioned writing those monologues. I think you emailed me the day I left for the workshop with you all and said, the play needs these extra bits. And I remember that the seat next to me happened to be empty on the flight over. I flew into Amman, Jordan on that trip, and the seat next to me happened to be empty on the flight to Amman, and it's a long flight. So I put the book there and I had my computer on the table, and I so we're lucky that seat was empty. I was able to write a bunch of extra material for that workshop. But yeah, to the broader point, you plays are living things, and you know, don't be too stressed out about the first draft. The first draft is the first draft, and it will evolve and develop, and you'll have new ideas as you go, and you know, it'll change over time.
I just want to say that I have a friend, she's a writer from England, and usually she have a notebook, small one, that sometimes I saw her like, oh, this is a good sentence, and she just write it there. She hears something suddenly and she just write it, and she just have it for whenever she thinks that it could be used. You know, there's a lot of tricks like that that people could use, and they're really useful.
Thank you. We're just about on time. If maybe we could end with one last picture, which means a lot to me, and then we'll thank our guests for being here. I think you can see this. It's a photo of the author of the novel, Hanan al-Sheikh, who lives in London. She grew up in Lebanon, but she lives in London now. And she wasn't able to come to Jerusalem for the production. So on the way home, I brought her a poster, which is what you see here. This is one of the posters of our show, and all the cast members have signed the back of it. And I was giving it to Hanan at dinner at a restaurant that you can see here in London. I show you this photo because it's what theater really means to me. Theater at its best is, for me, is about bringing people together. In this case, people from all over the world, a novelist, our group of actors, designers. You know, there's a whole team that works on a production like this. Only two of them are on this call, but there's a whole design team. It had an incredible sound design. You've seen some of the pictures of the scenic design. You know, we had the team that runs the theater. So there's an army of people that work on a production like this. And it seems to me theater at its best is about bringing people together. And then, of course, you have the audience itself. My mom came to Palestine to see the production, as you all will recall. And, you know, she still talks so fondly of that trip. It was the last trip she made before COVID. So, you know, we all think fondly of that. So thank you. And I suppose it's the silver lining of our COVID era that we're able to bring people together in these sorts of Zoom calls like you all have participated in today from California to Jerusalem. Thank you, Raeda and Yasmin. Federico, do you have a final thought?
Just a final thought. I hope that Raeda and Yasmin knows that Matt was named President Scholar of our university this year. Did you know that?
Yes, yes.
Yasmin?
It's a wonderful
news. Okay. I just wanted I wanted to be sure that, you know, we are very honored as San Jose State to have Matt as our faculty, and the university as a whole is acknowledging the quality, the excellence of his scholar work. So just that. Congratulations one more time, Matt.
Congratulations, Matthew.
on
We're
your
proud that
accomplishment.
we're working with you.
Federico,
Yes,
thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you. That's nice of you to mention, but to the point I was making here too, when you work in theater, you never work alone. And the work that you produce is always the labor of other people. And so an award like that might come to me in name, but it's shared by, you know, with Raeda, Yasmin, and all the people I've been so fortunate to work with over the years. You know, theater is extremely collaborative. It's partly what I like so much about it. But thank you. Thank you all for making the time today to be here and to talk about these issues. We covered a lot of territory here, from politics, you know, to issues of gender, which are not unrelated to politics, but, you know, we've covered a lot of territory in this time we've been together. Thank you all for making the time, Raeda and Yasmin.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Having us.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you'll hang on, Raeda and Yasmin, if you'll stay, I'm just going to turn off the recording.